All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Urban Ag Hour. We are so excited that you were able to join us this morning and hear from some amazing speakers. So, the Urban Agriculture Production Small Scale and Beginning Farmer Program has partnered with the USDA, NRCS, and FSA to offer this series. And today we will hear from two amazing speakers. Jenny Weber, who is the Pesticide Safety Education Coordinator at the University of Arizona's Cooperative Extension, and Jessie Huff, who is the USDA's Rural Development State Energy Coordinator. Again, we just thank you so much, and we will have the amazing opportunity to hear from both speakers, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where you guys will be more than welcome to unmute yourselves and ask your questions or send them in the chat and ask those as well. I will now hand the webinar over to Jenny, and I will let her take it away from here.
Well, good morning. My name is Jenny Weber, or Jennifer Weber, and I am with the Pesticide Safety Education Program, and it's a statewide program, but I'm based out of the Maricopa County Cooperative Extension Office. And I was happy to see that some of you had Zoomed in today. I saw Francis from the Arizona Landscape Contractors Association zooming in, so I'm glad to see some familiar names as well. I'm going to talk about pests, pesticides, and the label, and this is a very condensed time slot, and so I had this presentation. I kept trimming, and hopefully I got it to the amount of time that we need, but I was tailoring it to the thought that this would be an interactive session. So have some questions on some slides, and I would really, really appreciate if you unmute yourself at any time to answer those questions. You can type in the chat, but I am a very casual trainer, and I enjoy the extra noise and the interaction and the questions, because that's how we all learn from each other, and that's how I learn about your situations as well. So don't worry if you have a dog in the background or kids in the background. I don't mind that at all. So you can unmute at any time. So I am going to start with defining the pest. And a pest is an undesirable organism that injures humans, desirable plants, animals, manufactured products, or natural substances. But in reality, everybody sees and defines pests differently. So I'm going to pull up this first slide, and I want you to look at these photos. Which of these would you consider to be pests if they were in your farming operation, your farming area? And do you think everybody would agree with you? Does anybody feel that pigeons, do you welcome pigeons into your farming area? And you can unmute yourself.
And I guess it really depends on what they're doing in the area. And I've had issues with birds in the past, pecking holes in my melons.
Oh.
But if they're eating other critters that are creating additional issues, then they're fine.
Right, absolutely. So it could be the location, what you're growing. Some people are big fans of pigeons. I worked at an office that had pigeons roosting all over. So for us, that was a problem. Well, what about spiders and bees? Do you consider these beneficial, or would you consider them pests? And also, would it depend on the type or the location?
Jenny, you have some people putting things in the chat instead of turning mics on too.
Yes, and what does it say in the chat? Unfortunately, I don't have the screen that allows me to see the chat, so you're welcome to read what people are saying, because I bet they have some great responses.
I think a lot of people have said spiders and bees are welcome.
Yes, absolutely. And it could even be the type of spider when you think about it. This spider here, you see it, there aren't too many, but they're helping you control mosquitoes, flies. They are very welcome and kind of pretty. But if it's a black widow spider in your shed near where you need to grab all your tools, then suddenly that could be a pest. And then we can see the same things with these other three examples. We have this beautiful plant, which some people might think is a weed. But in my neighborhood, the neighbor kids love this. They call it sour flower. They can't wait for them to sprout up because they like to eat them. Feral cats. There are cats around this building, and I know that some people love them. They're going to cut down on all of our pests, but some people see them as pests. And the same with geckos. I like them, but some people get freaked out by the way they move. And see, our pigeons do not want to leave this slide. So if you look at the different types of pests, there are four main groups of organisms that might be considered pests. We have vertebrates and invertebrates. So what's the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate? What is the one thing that one has that the other doesn't?
Skeletal system.
Exactly. Here we have some vertebrate pests, just as examples: birds, amphibians, fish. Invertebrates might be insects,
I'm enjoying right now too.
and pathogens could be viruses, bacteria, or fungi. And weeds, very broad. It's anything, any plant that you feel is undesirable. Now we have rabbits back in the back area, and they are cute, but they eat a lot. What are some of the vertebrate, invertebrate, pathogen, and weed pests that you might find out in your area that pop up during different times of the year? Again, you can type in, you don't have to answer something for every single one. If you just want to say, hey, we're worried about getting ants, especially fire ants in our area, that's fine. You can type in the chat or speak out loud.
Hi, my name is Carla, and I'm worried about prairie dogs in my area.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so
Okay.
has an increase of
Have
prairie
you,
dog sighting on my property.
I am going to turn up the volume a little bit because I could certainly hear you, but I want to hear that answer. So prairie dogs, are they in and around the entire area? And so your attempt to take care of it really isn't reducing the population because they're.
Well, I haven't done anything yet. It just came to my attention. I've been seeing holes and no movement, but the past couple of weeks, I don't know, maybe because it's getting colder up in Flagstaff, but there's been more of a sighting. I have 2.5 acres, and one about a quarter of an acre I'm using to grow, and I'm trying to till the yard and get ready for the next growing season. But how do I get rid of these little critters?
Wow. Now, see, that's an interesting situation because while some people are licensed to use fumigants, that is a very specific product, and there are a lot of safety hazards. So what we can do is, I'm glad Ayman is on the entire urban ag team is on. We can start to talk about some of the integrated pest management techniques. Now, my brother has gophers, and he's had success getting rid of gophers with this. It's a snapping tool you put down in their trap. I can't remember the name of it, but I will ask him if it is also like just specific for gophers or if it's all burrowing rodents, and see if that might work for you. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good example. Is anybody?
Will you be able to? Will we get the slides emailed to us and then answers to our questions that we've asked?
That would be a great idea. Tiffany, are you keeping a mailing list of the people who participate? An email list? Is it?
So everyone will get a recording of the Zoom itself, but if you also want me to email out the PowerPoint presentation, I can do that as well.
Okay, great. And then we can keep in touch. My email is at the very end too, so anybody can email me. I don't have the answers to everything, but but I am always happy to find somebody who can help us to find a solution to your pest and pesticide safety questions. Let's go ahead and we're going to go through, because you had mentioned I just wanted to ask, was there another answer, a couple of really great responses that you noticed in the chat on the types of pests?
One thing I thought was good was a solution, is using grow boxes, right? I mean, grow beds, right?
Oh,
As
yeah.
far as like elevated,
Yeah, that's
because that and normally with some chicken wire underneath,
okay.
so everything good can come through, but at least those, because I have rabbits out here. That's a concern. There's no way I could grow without a grow box, or yeah.
Great examples. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I really like how that really segued right into this slide here. There are a few commonly applied pest management methods that people use, such as biological control, using natural enemies, predators, parasites, or pathogens to control your pest. Cultural control, you're changing the environment. This example here, you have a person emptying standing water. So they're reducing the chance that they will have mosquito larvae, flies, algae, kind of cleaning up that area, picking up trash, or snap traps, any barriers also. You mentioned the wire and getting things up off. That is great because you are helping to manage that pest. So today we're going to talk about chemical control. And I put here different terminology because I don't mind. Some people are they're sticklers on whether you say conventional pesticides. Some people say synthetic, and then other people say, no, they're conventional. I'm fine. As long as we're talking about the same thing, you can use whatever term you like. So some of the common terms you might hear are, well, of course, your organic pesticides. But conventional, sometimes people refer to them as inorganic, non-organic, synthetic, or they'll call them chemicals or pesticides. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So the word pesticide itself can be broken down into two parts, pest and side. The pest we just defined, and side means to kill. But on all pesticides, not all of them are designed to kill. Some are designed to repel. Mosquito repellents, for example. Some of those need to go through the process of getting approval for the market, going through a registration process. Maybe it's going to mitigate or minimize the damage caused by the pest, prevent it. Then at the bottom here, we have other examples, growth regulators, desiccants, which dry out the pest, and defoliants remove the leaves. Defoliants, you might have heard of those in use in cotton. They remove the leaves to make it easier to harvest. I'm going to, I think there is a bar that's showing up on my screen, so I don't know if it's blocking something out, but I will flip that off there. Pesticide itself is the broader term. It's like the term automobile that includes vans, sedans, trucks. So sometimes people say, oh, we use pesticides and herbicides, or they equate pesticide just with insecticides. So just so you know, pesticide is that broader term, and it includes all of the different types of pesticides. Here are some examples: insecticides, for managing insects, herbicides for weeds, rodenticides for rodents. And then we're going to move on to this next slide here, disinfectants. If anything is making a pesticidal claim, like you see here on the screen that's getting circled here, if it says it kills germs, kills bacteria, repels mosquitoes, those go through a registration process and they're considered pesticides. If you have, Lysol is a good example because you might have a Lysol that is just a cleaner. It's not a pesticide. But when it does say that it is a disinfectant and it kills the viruses, mold and mildew, then it is considered a pesticide. And swimming pool chlorine is also a pesticide. And imagine if you didn't use chlorine in this area. This is, I put before social distancing. There is even a lazy river around this, but you can't see there's so many people. So you can see that pesticides, if people have a greater awareness now that pesticides are being used, and so there is a fear of pesticides, but in many situations, they also help us with public health situations. If you didn't use chlorine, people might get sick, you might get a green swimming pool. If you use too much, you could also damage, people could have lung damage or they could burn their eyes. So using them correctly is key. So I was talking about pesticide registration. It can take many, many years and millions and billions of dollars in order to get a pesticide approved and registered for use. I've heard of one, and I don't know, Ayman, if you want to unmute yourself, if you get a chance. I thought I had heard of a researcher who was still researching a pesticide for 15 years, still doing trials. Does that seem like a reasonable amount of time, or is that an example of a very long research process? I don't know, maybe he can't. He might be at a meeting and not able to unmute himself.
I would
Sorry.
think I would think it's reasonable because sometimes when it comes to new products, it takes a while to, to determine whether or not it's harmful or not. And sometimes it may have,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
Okay, great. So why does it take so long? Well, the researchers, manufacturers, EPA, they all work together. And initially, there is lab screening and testing. Then the researchers want to run field trials, make sure that it is effective in managing that pest and how it impacts the environment. And then there is the creation of the pesticide label, making sure that information is worded clearly and accurately reflects the findings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's called an LD50. And this is the lethal dose to kill 50% of the population. This is one of those initial laboratory screenings that they do. Now, this is not that they don't fly over a town and say, okay, let's see at what dose do we kill 50% of the people live in this town. No, this is actually with laboratory animals. We're going to do laboratory rats here, and we're going to test the dose that kills 50% of our 4 laboratory rats. And it's just, when I say it's pesticide, it's not a product on a shelf. It's the active ingredient. So it's each individual active ingredient. So let's go ahead and I'm going to give them their first dose. Did anything happen? Nope. So let's go ahead. We're going to give them another dose. Oh, we lost one. Was that 50%? It is not. That's only 25%. I'm going to go ahead and give the remaining 3 another dose. Oh, we lost another. So that's 50%. And that tells us only about the immediate effects, the acute toxicity. Doesn't tell us what's going to happen in 20 years, not the LD50. They do other tests on chronic effects and long-term health effects. They also do lethal concentration. It's an LC50, so the concentration in water, concentration in the air. But what this LD50, the results will tell you, it is used to determine the signal word that is placed on the label. So that signal word that you see, whether it's danger, warning, or caution, that word is only telling you about the immediate effects. So often people see danger and they think, oh, this is going to cause cancer. And it's possible that that pesticide might, if it's a restricted use, there's a lot more that goes into it. But that is just telling you about the immediate effects. Your next category, warning, and your third category, caution. So the products that you're going to be using most likely will carry the word caution on the label. They might not even have a signal word. Some of the products that are sold at the big box stores, they've been pre-mixed with water. You don't need to come into contact with the concentrated form as much in certain situations for certain products, or they're in a ready-to-use container. And so those might be what's considered a category 4. And the manufacturer has the option to include the signal word or not. But so I'll move on that. Then, in addition to the lab studies, there are also field trials and research. When they're doing the field trials, they want to know, is it effective in managing the pest? And in doing so, is it also safe for the plant, or if it's something they're using on livestock, is it safe for livestock? What about beneficials? What about other plants and crops or areas surrounding that treatment site? How often can you use it? What is the dose? What are the methods of application? And then they also want to know how it impacts other things in the environment, so that you know if it's hazardous to fish and you have a pond nearby, maybe that's not the best product for you. How does it impact birds, groundwater, or surface water? And how long do those residues remain in the air, soil, water, and plants? So you're looking at that. How long does it take to break down? Is it really soluble, and does it dissolve in water easily and move down through the soil? What about the residues? Do they just hang around for many years, or is it something that breaks down fairly quickly? All of this information is put together. The label is developed, and EPA reviews all of the information. They have a regular schedule for reviewing pesticides. Let's say, I know you've probably heard of different products in the news that they're pulling. Paraquat is one. There's some big concerns. So EPA recently made some greater restrictions that only people who have their certification, their license, they passed an exam, can use that product, because just one swallow could cause, it could cause death, it could cause permanent lung damage. So it's a particularly hazardous product. They have taken safety measures to make sure also that the container has a lock and load, so you don't come into contact with that container. So they can make changes, they can review it, they can even pull things off the market. Let's go, look at my time. I think I'm doing okay. The importance of reading the label. And my mom sent this cartoon to me. She thought this would be great for a presentation. So don't hesitate to ask questions. But sometimes you'll go to a store and you'll ask somebody about a pesticide, and maybe that's their summer job, or they usually work in hardware, but you caught them right when you were in the pesticide aisle, and they might not know everything about those products, which is perfectly understandable. So don't hesitate to pick something up, read the label. I know that some of the labels are in a little pocket and you feel like you have to unfold them. Go ahead and do that. You're not going to get arrested for opening up a label. But the problem is the font is really small. So what I suggest is, if you have time, go ahead, take a photo with your cell phone of the products that you are considering. And then when you have a moment, go back to your laptop, pull up those labels online, and the manufacturer will have PDFs of those. And you can go through and discover whether or not it would work in your area, manage the pest, and any other things that you might need to buy when you go back to the store. So it's just an idea. So the label itself is the important document. Sometimes you might have heard, read the label, it's the law. I like to say read the label, because all of those years of research, all of that data has gone onto the label, and it contains the information that you need to protect yourself, protect others, the environment, and to use it effectively so that you're not wasting your time, wasting product, that you are using it according to the instructions. So here we have just a little breakdown here. The brand name, the EPA registration number. Each one has its own unique number, the ingredient, signal words, but I've highlighted these areas, precautionary measures. Maybe it says don't apply when there's direct sun. So that's something you need to consider if you have a pest problem and you're in the Phoenix area. Environmental hazards, certainly how to protect everything around you if there are any concerns. This particular one, I put a sun here. There are certain things that that really must focus on, especially for those who either have the you-pick farm or you're selling at farmers market. And that would be the pre-harvest interval and the plant back restrictions. The pre-harvest interval is the time that you must wait after the application before it's safe to harvest those crops. The plant back restriction, if you rotate crops, read the label and find out if any of them say you have to wait a certain time before you plant anything else. Also look to see the crops or the plants where you can use that. Because if you, like I said, you're rotating, you're trying out new vegetables, different seasons, you want to make sure that there aren't any residues maybe in that soil. But this is definitely something you can contact the urban ag team. You can contact me. I can look at the labels and we can kind of break that down to help you make informed decisions about what's best. The first one, the restricted entry interval, that is the time that you must wait after the application before it's safe for you to go back into that area. First aid instructions and your use instructions, so that you use that effectively and that it's approved. So this is one of my last slides. I think I have one more after this is just the closing slide. I know I'm running a little tight on time, so I apologize. But why should you read the label before buying, measuring, or mixing or applying pesticides or storing or disposing of them? So if you read it before you buy the pesticide, you will be able to know whether or not you can use it in your area. And when you're already at the store and you can, oh, hey, it says I need a certain type of glove. Let me grab those so that I'm here and maybe you need additional equipment. Or you could look and say, this one has a longer restricted entry interval and I don't want to mess with that. Let me go ahead and find one that's equally effective. Just you could make some informed decisions at that time. Before you mix or prepare the pesticide you will apply, that is key because you can learn about your mixing instructions so you're not stuck with, oh, I have the container open. Oh, how do I do this? Research it beforehand. Make sure that you have the right equipment. Some of them require you to wear additional protective equipment when you're mixing it than because you're working with it in concentrated form, than what you would wear when you are applying it in certain situations. Of course, before you apply the pesticide, any precautions about that application, you need to be aware of anything in the surrounding area. Of course, you're always going to concentrate on the wind and the weather, knowing how it would be impacted by those, and then you could safely apply it. And then before storing or disposing of the pesticide or its container, it might have unique instructions about disposing of the container and storage. More storage. Oh boy, I lost my slide. There it is. Can you see it? Hopefully. But the storage, you might have more information on the safety data sheet, but then again, this is something that we can help you find that information if you're unable to find it yourself. And then my last, I'm wondering if you can see this slide, but I think I clicked off of something.
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So you can see the zooming snail. So I just wanted to thank you for zooming in with me today. And there is my contact information. You can contact me at any time. Even if you wanted to leave a phone message, those messages get transcribed and we can read them in our email. So if I'm away from my phone, at least I can see your questions, but I'm happy to receive questions either way. And you definitely have the expertise of the urban ag team as well. So thank you very much. And hopefully, 10:30. Hopefully I didn't go too far over.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I will now hand the mic over to Jessie, and then we will answer any questions that we have for either presentation at the end.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm with Rural Development, which is one of the agencies within USDA. And we have kind of our own mission area. And are you seeing this black line at the top, or do you not see that?
I think if you might be, I don't see a black line.
Oh,
but
good.
You have the drop down that maybe you could put hide floating.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
But okay, so USDA, of course, has a lot of mission areas. We know that. Rural Development kind of has its own agency. And in general, Rural Development only works in communities of 50,000 people or less. But there's one exception to that, and that would be for ag producers. So we do have a few programs that are eligible for ag producers. Let me see if I can get rid of this. That are eligible for ag producers, and both of those are inside of the Business and Cooperative Services Department of Rural Development. So we do a lot of things in rural America, things like water treatment centers, ambulances, fire trucks, schools. We work with broadband. We work with rural electric cooperatives. And then, of course, we have low income and moderate income housing program to help people purchase homes. But the two programs I'm going to touch on today are both inside of our Business and Cooperative Services. So the two programs I'll talk about will be the Rural Energy for America program and the Value Added Producer Grant. But I would say that for all of our programs, these are pretty good tips and tricks for when working with rural development. Now, I'm not sure about the other USDA agencies, but I know that a lot of the other government programs out there, like DOE, Department of Transportation, a lot of those don't really work with you the way rural development does. So when we put out a notice of solicitation or a notice of funding announcement, it's pretty typical that a lot of government agencies want you to use that information solely to submit your application, and they tell you how, and a lot of times it's on a government grants website where you're going to submit through a portal. But for our programs, that's usually not how it occurs. If you wanted to apply for REAP or the Value Added Producer Grant, you would work directly with me in the state of Arizona, and you would submit your application to me in PDF attachments to an email. And I'm allowed to work with you to make sure that your application is eligible before you even start. And I'm allowed to score your application for VAPG and tell you if, it looks like your chances are good or not, how you could maybe raise your score. So please work with us. The big mistakes I see are, when there's a deadline, people try to apply on that last day right before, and then there's not enough time for me to review everything. And if something isn't signed or one item wasn't included, once that due date passes, your application is considered not complete and you miss that funding cycle. Where if you work with us in advance, we can help you get it complete by that date, and then you're good to go and you're be in that competition. Almost all federal grants are competitive, and VAPG and REAP are as well. So first I'll talk about the Rural Energy for America program. So again, this program, if you are a rural small business, if you're applying as a business, you have to be in a rural area of 50,000 people or less. And when you go to our website, we have a map tool, so you can put in your exact location and make sure that you qualify. You'd also have to be considered small, which most businesses are. You have to be pretty big to not be small. But if you're an ag producer, you can be downtown Phoenix. And the way we classify an ag producer is that 51% or more of your annual income comes from agricultural production. And the two ways that you can apply to this program are either as a renewable energy project, a RES, or an energy efficiency improvement, an EEI. In order to apply for a RES, you're gonna, let's say it's solar, that's what it is the most in Arizona. You're gonna need to get a quote. You're gonna need to know exactly what you want to do, most likely who you're gonna work with to do it, have a quote, and have the money. You have to have the money to do it, the project. Now, most of the time, what that looks like is someone will submit in their application packet their checking account balance, as well as a letter from their bank that'll say, if you get this grant, the bank is willing to give you a line of credit or a loan to complete the project. And then if you're successful in the application process, we write you a letter that you can then take to the bank and say, I got this grant. Because the way REAP works is you're going to have to build that solar project and pay the contractor for it, and it will have to produce energy for 1 month before you can submit all your paperwork and ask for your grant money to be reimbursed to you. So think of REAP as a reimbursed grant. For energy efficiency improvement, you would be taking something that you already do, a piece of equipment that you already own, say it's a pump for your well, and you'd be replacing it with a more efficient pump. And for that, you need an energy audit. And if you need an energy audit, we work with ASU. They have a center for energy audits, and you can get a reduced cost energy audit through them. So they get a grant from us that pays for all their travel if they need to come to your site, and pays for 75% of the cost of them doing the energy audit. And then that audit gets attached to your application, and that's your technical report for an energy efficiency improvement. Basically, what it'll do is it'll say, you have this pump, you're going to replace it with this pump, and that is going to save you this many kilowatt hours and this much money annually. And you need those numbers to fill out the application. So I have a little note on here about if a project is over 10 acres. I just want to notify everybody that does require more upfront cost. So if it's a large project, or if it's a project in an area that's never had ground disturbance and might be in some way protected or sensitive, there might be more upfront work needed before applying to do like a cultural resource study or an environmental assessment on that project location. if you're going to just put solar on a roof, you have to fill out the environmental checklist, but that's generally won't cost you any money or need any extra planning up front. So, and again, for all these programs, if you are going to apply, you're going to talk to me first, and we can talk about all this, and you know what you need. So what is eligible and what is not eligible in REAP? Well, a lot of the ag producers I speak to and ranchers, many of them have their residential home on the same property as their operation, and residential energy is not eligible in the program. So what we do in those cases is we partition it out. So let's just say you wanted to build $100,000 solar project on the roof of a hay barn, and your electric meter currently powers your ranch and farm and your house. In your technical report that your solar provider helps you develop, you would work with your solar provider to help estimate how much annual usage your house uses, and you would have to take that out of what's eligible for the grant. So say we determine that it's 40-60, 40% residential and 60% business. That means that you'd only be able to ask for a grant on $60,000, not the full 100,000. Again, the permitting and the licensing is an eligible cost in the grant, but the technical stuff that needs to be done prior is not eligible. Also, the way the REAP program works is you want to know what you want to do and how much it costs to apply, but you don't want to spend money yet. Eligible costs to be reimbursed have to be dispersed by you after you have a complete application submitted. Okay, so how big of a grant can you ask for? For any technology that does not produce a greenhouse gas, you can ask up to 50% right now. And that's because of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. So this program used to only be a 25% grant until the Inflation Reduction Act. And we have 4 more years of funding under that act, which it allows solar and energy efficiency in most cases to ask for up to 50% grant. Now, something like anaerobic digestion, cow poop to methane, that would still be limited to a 25% grant because it also produces greenhouse gases. So the REAP program also has a component that's called the loan guarantee. This is usually used by very large projects. I've never seen a loan guarantee come through the door for less than 2 million. A lot of them are well over that. It's usually used for anaerobic digestion, large scale solar where they're selling to the grid, really big buildings that are getting extensive energy efficiency upgrades. And you, the agricultural producer, will not be the applicant to the guarantee loan program. It's actually your lender, the bank, that is our applicant. And so again, if you wanted to go down any of these paths, you would end up calling me and we would discuss the specifics of your program to make sure you fit everything. The application for REAP is pretty extensive. This is the to-do list. And it does all have to match, and it can take some time to put together. But most solar providers are familiar with our program, and so they help you a lot. And if you have an energy efficiency project, ASU, that does those audits, they know our program and they help you a lot. And then I'm here. And also, the IRA created a new program for technical assistance. and it's been awarded to Local First and SEGO, Southeast Arizona Government Organization. And so starting in around February, those two organizations will also have some technical assistance to help you through this grant process, besides just me. So REAP grants used to be competed twice a year, but the IRA changed that to quarterly. So now we have 4 quarters, 4 competitions every year, moving forward, most likely for the 4 years that IRA is around. However, the NOFA that's been published in the Federal Register at this point has only designated these up until September 30th of 2024, but we anticipate it to be the same moving forward for the next 3 years after that. So we expect this to be the same in FY25. Now, the federal calendar is different than the calendar, so it's kind of confusing. But if you were to submit your application before September 30th, so in between June 30th and September 30th, your first competition you would compete in would be the one that closes on September 30th, and that would be the first competition of the fiscal year that you're in. If you were not awarded in that competition, you wouldn't have to do anything. Your application would keep competing in every quarter within that fiscal year until you get awarded. Now, if on the 4th quarter of the fiscal year, you're not funded yet, if you have not yet started your project, if you have not spent money yet, you can reapply to the next fiscal year. So, the way the regulation reads, you can start your project as soon as you have a complete application submitted. But I usually recommend that you don't do that, just in case you need to resubmit your application and you were not funded in the fiscal year you first applied. So this is just an example of a small dairy farm. They could have asked for they could have asked for just up to 25% of the total project cost, but they didn't ask for the full 25%. And they received a REAP grant. This is a veterinary hospital that did rooftop solar. They did ask for a 50-50 grant. And again, this is reimbursable. So also, I'm not a tax accountant, but there's also renewable energy tax incentives available right now that you receive at the end of the fiscal year. And additionally, you have a reduction of your operating cost. So all of these things combined are making this a really good time to invest in this. If you've been thinking about it for a while, this is a really good opportunity, a reason to maybe think about moving forward. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about value-added producer grant. So the value-added producer grant is really hard to understand from the NOSA. The Federal Register's announcement of this program is fairly confusing in my opinion. And it is because the USDA has very specific definitions for words that maybe aren't how we commonly would think about the way we would use these words. So when you think about the value-added producer grant, there's 2 ways you're going to look at this. So, well, the first thing is you have to already be producing a value-added product of some kind. So I lived in Alaska for a long time, and the example I have always used up there was, say that you pick blueberries. So you harvest your own product, and you have to, as the ag producer, harvest at least 50% of your product. Grow, harvest, this could be beef, it could be carrots that you grow, it could be something that you harvest. So you can buy 50%, but you have to be the one harvesting at least 50%. And say that you currently make blueberry jam. But what you want to do is start dehydrating blueberries. And so that would be a new value-added product. And that would be one way that you could apply. Another way you could apply is you could enter a new market with a product that you already have. So you already sell blueberry jam, but you're currently only selling it at the farmer's market, and you want to start selling it in the grocery stores. So that could be a market expansion. Another market expansion could be you currently sell in the Phoenix area, but you want to start distributing worldwide, and you want to be able to sell on the internet, and you're not doing that currently. So that's also a market expansion project. Okay, then there's two other ways you have to apply. You either apply as a planning grant or a working capital grant. And when you choose which one you're going to do, you cannot mix the activities. You can only do planning activities and apply as a planning grant, or you can only do working capital activities and apply as a working capital grant. Often we see people do planning first and working capital like 2 years later. That's really common. So what are planning activities? You can't pay yourself and you can't pay a relative. So the planning activities that are eligible are things like paying someone to do market analysis for you, paying someone to design logos and packaging, paying someone to make a business plan for a whole new product, gathering these design materials that you need. And then for working capital, again, you cannot pay yourself or a relative, but you can pay employees to actually package this new product that you are creating. So say, back to the blueberry example, let's say you currently produced 50 jars of blueberry jam a year, but now because you're expanding your market, you are going to produce 100. So the labor that you pay someone else to produce the extra 50 would be eligible under working capital. Also, what's eligible under working capital is for you to actually print off those labels that were designed, to purchase the packaging material that you identified, shipping costs of the new products, or delivery costs of the new expanded product. Those would be eligible costs under working capital. So VAPG is about marketing. You can't buy equipment with it or, assets. It's all centered around the marketing of the new or expanded value-added product. So for planning grants, the maximum ask is $75,000, and working capital, it's $250,000. It is a 50-50 grant, and you do have to show that you have enough money to cover the entire cost, or at least a line of credit or working capital to get you through this. But different from REAP, with VAPG, you can ask for a reimbursement on a monthly basis. So let's say you had a working capital grant and you just found out you got the grant, so it's your very first month in the program, And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to buy a whole bunch of labels and you're going to buy your packaging equipment. And say you spend $100,000 on that, you submit all those receipts to us and you would be reimbursed for $50,000. You'd get 50% back on a monthly basis as you move through the grant's eligible activities. Now, okay, the Rural Energy for America program, right? That program has state money. It competes at the state level. And then at the end of the fiscal year, all the money in all the states are swept, and all the applications that haven't been funded are sent to the national office, and there's a national office competition too. VAPG is not like that. For VAPG, all the applications come to me, and then I actually process them, and an independent review team scores them, and they compete nationally against everyone. So I would say, you know, generally speaking, VAPG is more competitive than REAP. And so even more so with VAPG, it is super important that if you're interested in doing this program, that you work with me well in advance. We talk about your project a lot, all the details. We score it in advance, talk about how you're scoring and how that would match up nationally with what we see. I've never seen anyone submit their first VAPG and submit it the day it's due and get funded. That doesn't happen very often. It's a difficult grant to get. It's really competitive. It's confusing of what's eligible and what's not. So these are the most common reasons people get their application rejected in VAPG. Again, they mix up these working capital and planning activities on their grant. They have some things that are ineligible in there, which will disqualify you. Not providing the proof of matching funds, not being clear enough on what the expansion is and what you're already doing, and being very clear that there's a line there and that the grant is only eligible for the expansion. Also, having wording that suggests that anything is an estimate. Everything, when the independent reviewers are reviewing these applications, they want everything to be exact numbers, really known numbers, not estimations. And I can't see my bottom one because of this box here. Yeah, and not providing the details needed. Yeah. Yeah, just being very thorough. What I see in these VAPG applications there will be scientific papers attached to support what you want to do sometimes. I mean, it's very academic. REAP is is very construction based, and it's all about your solar provider or your energy auditor providing you a really quality technical report, where VAPG is much more about proving out your business model for this expansion. And so, yeah, that is my presentation. I can take questions, and I think everyone will get, I wrote this PowerPoint, knowing that you guys will get it, and hopefully it'll be helpful.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessie. That was a wonderful presentation. I am going to put our survey up on the screen. If you guys could just take that to give your input on what you're wanting. We are running a little short on time, so we can have a quick Q&A session. But also the emails for both presenters were also provided, so you guys are more than welcome to either email us and we can relay the questions, or email them and ask your questions as well. But we just thank you guys all so much for attending this month's Urban Ag Hour. And again, any questions can be asked via email, via chat. I know we're running a little short on time, but sometimes it happens when you're having great information given. And if you liked this month's Urban Ag Hour, be sure to tune in for January's Urban Ag Hour, which will be happening on January 17th. And just don't forget to take that survey so that way we can get all of your guys' inputs for future events.
And I wanted to thank everybody as well. And thank you for inviting me, Tiffany, to present.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenny.
I saw someone wanted my email address. I hope that went to everyone.
I think it might have gone to just me, but I can type it out to everyone as well.
Good. Yeah, well,
That way
thank you. Thank you for having
Yeah.
us. It was really
Thank you
good.
so much.
And I look forward to hearing from anyone who's curious about the programs.
Yes, we will make sure that any questions that get relayed to us will get sent out to our speakers, and any contact information for our speakers to get relayed out to them as well. So thank you so much, everyone. And I just hope that you guys all have a great rest of your day and have a wonderful holiday season.